Here's an overview of today's webinar. I'm going to focus on using plugins rather than developing them, which is another hot topic. So perhaps we'll cover that in a future webinar. Today's webinar can really be broken down into two parts. In the first part, I'll answer many of the questions you may have about plugins, such as what are they, and where can I find them, how do I use them, and so on. Then in the second part of the presentation, I'll do a bit of a plugin showcase. I'll actually show you how plugins can be used in certain situations to save time, which saves money, while developing in Apex. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please don't hesitate to ask. So, what exactly is a plugin? A plugin is a component that extends the native functionality of Apex. In the modern web, there are all kinds of tools and widgets that developers can use for various tasks. So many, in fact, the Apex development team couldn't possibly incorporate them all into Apex. Even if they did, Apex would become bloated. Just imagine if you had to select from hundreds of options each time you went to add an item to a page. So that's what plugins do. They extend Apex while keeping the core lean. Now you may be thinking, wait a second, Apex is extensible. I've always been able to integrate external products, and that's true. In the past, you could manually integrate anything you wanted, provided you knew how. Manual integration requires outside knowledge apart from SQL and PL/SQL, which is what most Apex developers are comfortable with. To integrate components in the web, knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript was also necessary. But even if you had the knowledge, it was still time-consuming, and manual integration could never be done in a way that was easy to repeat. The new plugin architecture solves all of these problems. It allows developers outside of the Apex development team to create components that people can install and use, as if they were native components. As you'd expect, the plugins go with your application, so you don't have to worry about that when deploying into production. There are currently 4 types of plugins available, and I've listed them here along with some popular examples of each. The first 3 extend components that existed in Apex prior to version 4. The last one allows you to extend the abilities of another exciting new feature of Apex known as dynamic actions. Dynamic actions basically allow you to make interactive applications without having to know JavaScript. The first step to working with plugins, of course, would be to find them. Currently, there are 2 places to look. There's a site used by Oracle for their own plugins, and another one used by the community in general. Now, you don't need to memorize either of these URLs. I'll show you an easy way to get to both once we get to the live demo. The Apex development team is currently debating a public plugin repository. There are a few obstacles to overcome, but if they can do it, we may see some impressive capabilities down the road, such as the ability to alert you when a new version of a plugin you're using becomes available. Frankly, we'll just have to wait and see, but hopefully that may happen. Once you've downloaded your plugin, all you need to do is install and use it. Plugins are installed via an import wizard found in the shared components. Plugins must be installed into each application you wish to use them in. Once installed, the exact use will vary by the plugin type, but essentially you just add a new component to your application as you normally would. So if it's an item plugin, you'd go to add a new item. If it's a region plugin, you'd go to add a new region, and so on. The only difference is that you'll be looking for the plugin option once inside the creation wizard. keep in mind that plugins have declarative attributes like other components. Some attributes will be found at the plugin level and the shared components. Those will affect all components in the application that use that plugin. Other attributes will be found at the component level and can be customized each time a plugin is used. I'd like to take just a moment before we switch over to the demo to talk to you about some of our services. Dave?
Great, thanks, Dan. Dan's going to do a couple of demonstrations, and while he's setting up for those demonstrations, which will take about 30 seconds, I'd just like to talk to you real quick about some of the services that we have here at SkillBuilders. Of course, application development, Oracle APEX application development, everything from just getting you started on your project, some micro consulting or micro mentoring, and plugin development, of course, now with APEX 4.0, or full life cycle, from requirements analysis to building. We also have training. You can see the classes that are on the calendar. The next class is a new features class on August 16th. If you're brand new to APEX, you might want to attend the introduction to Oracle APEX on August 30. So we hope you'll enroll in some of those classes. If you have a group of people or working in a company where there are several people interested in Oracle APEX, learning about Oracle APEX, we will be happy to come to your site, and that is the most cost-effective way if you have a group of 5 or more students. Also online for your viewing at any time, currently all of these are free, are all of our webinars that we've already done and some of the training sessions that we've already done. So you can view those at any time. And we hope you will. We're going to be putting today's webinar up on this page in probably about a week. So you'll be able to review Dan's plugin session. And finally, we have some tutorials and other resources that may be helpful to you. So I think Dan is set up, and if that's the case, I'll pass the ball back over to him, and thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, next up we're going to do a live demonstration where I'm going to take you through several different plugins. Unfortunately, I'm doing the demo today on the APEX instance hosted by Oracle, and they have certain restrictions with regard to HTTP callouts. So I cannot show you a process plugin because all of those that are available today do use those callouts. But I'll be showing you some item plugins, a region plugin, and some dynamic action plugins as well. Let's get started. Okay, the first I want to show you, I'm going into the application builder and I'm going into the plugins demo app. I'll go into the shared components just to show you here under user interface the new plugins option with 4.0. If you go into it, I promised I'd show you an easy way to get to those URLs. You'll see a number of buttons, and one of them is View Plugin Repository. If you click that, it'll take you to the first of the 2 URLs I showed you. And this is the one, obviously, at Oracle. It's their internal repository for the plugins that they've developed. So here we have item plugins, we have a star rating, and a group select list. I'm going to show you the star rating today. Process plugins, this is a Twitter status update, pretty cool. Another one that I wanted to show you is a process plugin. It does stock exchange lookups from Yahoo. So 2 different process plugins, dynamic action plugins, and so on.